fact that our own authorities, I'm a banker, so we are ECB, and the ECB is actually failing delivering the audit at those suppliers' data centers. So what about the DMA? Is when we are operationalizing, we are addressing 20% of the scope, and we are at the end, and we have that discussion with the EC. This is a lot about enforcement. So the regulation is one thing, and now we need the enforcement. We need those suppliers to make that happen, not to promise on making that happen. And this is a lot about the energy we have to put all together on the B2B side to the benefit of our companies, our members, and the administration as well. And we see it might be a paradox, but I think it's a greater value at the end for the consumer themselves.
Verena, are you confident that we can achieve that with the help of the DMA?
Well, I'm confident that we have to try, because DMA is a sword, but only if we use it. And I mean, Philomena, your team is doing a great job. But we need the backing of governments, of states, and it really has to become a priority. And usually, I mean, I come from the startup and scale-up world. We don't like regulation. We don't like bureaucracy. We want little rules, low barriers of entry. We want to start quickly and not have to deal with things like this. The DMA is different because it has such a high barrier of entry for innovation and scale-ups and startups. And so I think it should be at the top of the list to enforce it. It is what will lead to a level playing field in Europe, and it will be something that will make us very strong.
Market changes have not only to do with regulatory framework, but also with capital. We heard that a lot of times today as well. Startups that could be the game changers don't have a lot of choices, talking about choices all the time as well. They are highly dependent on US financing. So speaking of the balance and the right way, what chances of cooperation do we need to take in order to become sovereign here?
Well, capital is the key, and I mean, we're a rich continent. 17% of our private wealth is the private wealth of the world. We have 300 billion in Germany that we invest every year via our pension funds and insurers, and less than 1% goes into venture capital. And I mean, France led the way with Plan TB. They said we want more institutional capital into innovation. And it worked. Billions went into the French startup ecosystem, and great companies came out of it, because in order to compete against UAE and US and China, we need larger funds, more growth, more late-stage capital, and that's exactly what TB did. And so I love the WIN initiative here in Germany. Yeah. We signed it over a year ago. It was part of the coalition contract to double it in the next 5 years to 25 billion. So I would say let's go.
Emmanuel, you could add on that, because that's a constant work of yours as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are representing the largest company, but this is a whole ecosystem, and I'm very much with you. This is the VC thing, and then the scale-up, and then how to play when you are a big company. So I'm strongly supporting your point of view.
Thank you. Alexandre, we had another quote before, and there we're coming back to the infrastructure point from Corinne Katz. She said, open source is an illusion without infrastructure. So coming back to the data and Data Act, how would you answer on that?
I mean, yes, I fully agree with what she said, but I'm not sure that it's with the DMA that you build infrastructure. I mean, the DMA is a way to scale up infrastructure, if you want, as I said, because you have access to, it helps you to have access to business or a consumer and consumer. But of course that you need other things to build that infrastructure, and we have discussed that. It's first a mindset, second a self-confidence, because I'm always struck how, you know, in the US they are much more self-confident than we. Money, but we have that. I mean, I think it's just to have the right policy. So I think that's what we need. But it's clear that the focus should be on building open infrastructure, which are sovereign. Yeah.
But we do have the infrastructure. I mean, the point is we do build infrastructure, but not forcibly European sovereign. And what we had OVH Cloud here before. He said we have all the infrastructure, we have clouds, but not enough.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's clear that it needs to be built more. We need to accelerate, and as you say, I mean, the key word here is modularity. I think that's one of the, let's say, power of digital is this possibility of modularity, and I think that's where we can be good at, and that's where regulation. But again, I mean, I don't want to overplay the role of regulation. Can help to get to that modularity. It can also help the people to choose. And you know, what I would like to see, you know, from the Commission or from the big tech is. You know, we have maybe, you have seen those choice screen, you know, where you can choose at some point a new browser or a new search engine and so on. But, you know, they come all at different time, and so it's very complicated for us to think about that and for the competitor to make an advertisement campaign around it. So I think, you know, maybe what we should have in Europe is a kind of annual choice day, you know, where all those choice screen will be shown at the same time, and it will be maybe our liberation day.
Mm-hmm. A new challenge that we face is, yes, take your time, is the development of AI agents and browsers. We have new browsers that were already installed, but we're not sure how safe they are at the moment. So it will become even more difficult to understand rankings, to understand recommendation systems, and to prove whether one's own products have been favored and competitors disadvantaged. We don't know that yet. So how do you answer that? By law or by technology? Emmanuel?
I'd say, I mean, the AI agent world is becoming increasingly complex, rich and complex. The way we don't see the regulation fixing that is, as you said, it's not about only the DMA. So there is the full structure. There is a DMA, there is the AI Act, there is the CSA, there is the Data Act. So I'd say it will be increasingly difficult, you know, to have some proper definitions, scoping, addressing the opportunities and the risk, considering the SaaS market, considering the AI market, the agentic AI market, and then we're starting to use the quantum, you know, all the CIB corporate investment banking, we're using that, some other industry are using that as well. So we are very eager to see what the quantum regulation is bringing to us. Mm-hmm. So at one point of time, it's good to set up your, you know, how you see from the user side, because you are always talking about the digital market, talking through the provider side. But on the user side, in France, our large companies, they are spending in the range of 80 to 100 billion of IT per year. So we do make the market. Mm-hmm. So listen to us. And then if we were to say, hold on, it's getting too complex with agentic AI, because the regulation will try in advance to foresee what will be the risk of, you know, managing together AI, Quantum Act, CAIDA, it's to come, and etc., DMA. Hold on. Mm-hmm. Just start, innovate, and then we will have, you know, a good talk about reflecting back, you know, looking at the risk, proposing some good stuff. We are working with the other association, with the EC, with all the ecosystem. I'm very confident that as we will be innovating, we will be the right people, right parties to be proposing the right regulation. But we count on the EC to have a lean operational scene and a strong enforcement, because we don't want to have the burden to make the provider comply with the regulation.
Yeah, of course, Werner.
No, but I think it's important that they are new types of gatekeepers and that they're adding a discovery layer which is outside the DMA scope right now. So if you as a user say to AI, book me a lovely weekend in Paris and make some suggestions, then obviously we won't have the transparency that we have had before. Yeah. So I think it's important that they are included under the scope of the DMA and that we treat them as new gatekeepers early, because otherwise it will have the same effect as we've seen so far.
Mm-hmm. Alexandre, you want to add on that? And
Philomena, AI agent is the next big thing, and I think what is important is that this agent is loyal to you and not to the company from where it comes. So 3 things I think are important there. Transparency, as it has been said, transparency on how this agent selects what they offer to you. Internal governance of the company which are developing those. You know, I think one of the big success, for instance, of the DSA could be how far the trust and safety team into those big companies what are the power of the trust and safety team over the product team? Is it changing or no? But I think, if the internal governance is good, you could expect that the AI agent will be good. And third, of course, competition. So you can vote with your feet if you are not happy with the result of the AI agent. So transparency, internal governance, and competition, to me, are one of the key things. But to come back to your question, it's always better to have to intervene upfront at the technology level, and regulation is always a second or third best at the end.
Mm-hmm. But, well, Philomena, you might not share that one, but the question for me is, you said that the DMA is a rather young regulation or rather young framework, but can regulation react that fast? This is what the Omnibus initiative tries to react on, actually, but still, how can we get to an iterative process that really can react on these market changes?
It's a very important point. It's the future-proofing point that we have tried to address, but also given that as you recalled before, I was involved in the process that led to the adoption of the DMA itself. It was very present also in the mind of the legislators when they discussed the DMA. And that's where there are certain future-proofing elements that are already embedded in the legislation. But to give an example more to the ground of what we are talking about, so the agentic AI. Now, I cannot agree more that it's not the DMA that is going to make Europe an AI powerhouse, but I believe, and I think this panel shows that there is some kind of consensus that there is a big role to play. So how? That's the question. Mm-hmm. Now, the way, if we see at what let's say the main components of AI deployment or the main ingredients, we know that we need infrastructure, or companies need infrastructure, need data, and possibly need the distribution, access to users, a user base. Now, these are some of the things that are also covered by the DMA, already now as it is today. The distribution, for example, is the distribution of new agents that may reach all mobile phones users in Europe once there is a competitor or many competitors to those that are already perhaps provided by the existing gatekeepers. So as the gatekeepers can leverage their platforms to reach users, so also deserve other competitors in this field. Data, there are certain data-related obligations that can already apply to unlock certain opportunities, and there are companies that have come to us that are already exploring the opportunities to leverage these possibilities to develop new services, for example, including in the AI sphere. And the infrastructure is what I mentioned before. We are looking into how to leverage the DMA in the cloud ecosystem. And there, linking to a point that you made before about B2B, cloud, not only cloud operators, there is a whole ecosystem that uses or relies on cloud services to provide services to companies that then reach end users. So we are even 2 layers before the end users. Mm-hmm. And this is also part and parcels of what we are looking into in the DMA. And I'm thinking of the CDN that were mentioned before, but also all those innovators that provide services that rely on cloud, for example, to create bridges for multi-cloud. Mm-hmm. Or other types of that need APIs or other interfaces with the cloud. So there are certain things that we can do already with the DMA as it is today, because luckily, or by a forward-looking approach adopted by our legislators, they put in the DMA formulations that are tailored and targeted, but at the same time adaptable to the changing technologies.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Well, there's one last specific example I'd like to make, because I heard the word been dropped here on this panel, quantum, and it was dropped on the other panel, and there was a French colleague saying that with quantum we might not only catch up, we can be at the start and at the front. So how could a framework like the DMA secure that we stay at the front of this development? That might be something, besides AI, as the minister said, that we can come back with. Is the DMA a regulation that could help there as well?
I would say the same as with AI. The moment, if you think about if there are technologies that start being embedded in services that are regulated by the DMA, they will be subject to regulation. Now, I was thinking that the perfect quantum regulation is the one that at the same time regulates and simplifies. So maybe that's something that we can think of for the revision of or the review of the DMA coming up.
You know, that would be the dream come true. But how do you think will quantum change the discussion about AI and maybe the markets as well?
I think there are better experts than me in the room to answer that question, but I think that, as you say, thinking a step ahead, leading the way, kind of to come back to the soccer example, coming with an ambition to playing to win is, I think, what we need now again, because regulation itself won't lead us in the future. We still need the people, the ideas, the companies that strive. But I think the combination of a very strong European regulation on the one hand with the DMA, on the other hand a lot of freedom for startups and scale-ups to scale quickly and see Europe as one market, one single market, is the big chance we have. And in my eyes, the time is now. We've been talking about this forever, and that's why I like a day like this, and I hope it sends a strong signal that we're now ready to act.
And we've been talking about the Capital Markets Union as well for a long time. So what do you think would be changed when we finally achieve it, actually? That's something you work for as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing that we were discussing about quantum, and the way to consume quantum is going to be software. I mean, we are very much proud and focusing on the core capability, just like data center, chips, and GPU. But at the end of the day, the massive new market above quantum is all about algorithm, software, and all the talents we need to bring in to take the benefit of that. And this is where, you know, the alignment between the market, so the unified cap market, the ecosystem of the great tech providers in Europe, and the new one to grow on the software side. And specifically, we want DMA to structure the market for them to have better chance to become our champions in Europe. And as large company, we will be very pleased to encourage and to buy from them, thanks to the DMA, unlocking the position we have with the US tech providers, still having some buying and some activities with them, but a much better balance to our benefits.
Mm-hmm. Alexander, you want to add? No. Okay, all right. So to sum it up and focus on the DMA, what exactly needs to be changed or simplified in the wording or objectives of the DMA in order to address the issues that have just been raised, Alexander?
I would say the thing I would advise to do is for the Commission first to maintain and maybe to step up the enforcement as it has been said. So continue your work and do it more. And also maybe to indicate more clearly what will be solutions which are acceptable in terms of compliance. So you did it under the DMA with the specification decision on interoperability. You did it under DSA with the children protection. I think it's good that the Commission indicates, you know, what needs to be done. For the national authority, I think they should have awareness campaign for the small business user of their right, because many people don't even know that. You know, and so you know, this DMA can only be livable if everyone is playing its role. You know, Philomena and her team cannot do that alone. So it's clear that awareness campaign by national authority, which are closer to the business user, could be done. And finally, as I said, I would like to see a liberation day. You know, every year, you know, you have the choice screen. Everyone has at the same time, and then you can choose whether you want to move or not.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Lena, what do you think? What exactly needs to be changed?
I think we need more backing from the governments and the states and more leadership from the top. And so I liked it very much when Chancellor Merz said yesterday at another event that he agrees that Germany should be a startup nation, because that's what Macron said a few years back, and it changed everything for France. I mean, I already mentioned Plan TB. those of you who've been to Station F, it's not just an impressive building, it's absolutely impressive how many startups, scale-ups and companies come together there and how much capital it attracts. And even symbolic things like inviting scale-ups to the Élysée-Palast is something that matters, because if you can see it, you can be it. And so I think the DMA is strong as it is, but now it needs the backing, especially also from Germany, to say we really want to enforce it.
Okay, so it needs to be really put on a shelf, on a desk. Do you agree that we need an information campaign, something that people can...
Well, I think it's a very bubbly subject. Yeah, like talk about the DMA at a dinner party and nobody will listen. Yeah. So yes, and we have to tell the stories. We have to tell the stories, like from Germany, from Zalando or Get Your Guide, companies that were founded here, that scaled here, and how they don't have the same market possibilities if we don't enforce the DMA, and all the startups that will still be founded in the future. So I think you have to make it tangible. I mean, here a lot of policymakers, a lot of people that have this topic on their table every day. To bring it to the people, we have to tell different stories.
So how can we tell different stories, Emmanuel? What would be stories?
I mean, the stories are practical use cases, and you know that as part of the association, we are actually bringing in 4,000 collaborators, people from our companies and administration. They're working together to, practically, this is not a think tank, this is a do tank. So we are how to put in place the DMA, how to put in place the AI Act, how to turn that into benefits. So they are all sharing practical use case from their industries, and they are cross-fertilizing. But it's the users, this is also the authorities. When we are talking with the ECB we talk about the digital identity before, so the wallet. So would the wallet be 100% EU tech ecosystem? Plain answer will be yes. Ask the ECB about that. That's a good question. We will have good discussion to have in December. So there is a lot to do with that. It's not only users and providers, this is governments, this is authorities. The whole ecosystem has to listen to use cases, not regulation by the book, because it's absolutely accurate, well-defined, but at the end of the day, this is day-to-day situation, even for the companies, so we should be working more on that.
So you don't agree that we should challenge the DMA or change anything?
I say that focus on the B2B side, simplify the way the enforcement is being done, but tackle the way some providers not meeting with the expectation, and then support the companies, the small company, the large company administration, do some communication, support all the use cases, and whenever there is some sovereign features, just like the wallet and the others, please be 100% aligned with the guidance coming from the regulation, because anything that will be 20%, 60%, sometimes 80%, the opposite of what the guidance are coming from the regulation is absolutely killing the trust. And this whole thing is absolutely anchored in a trust-based relationship between all the players.
Philomena, let's talk about DMA literacy at the end, because it was said that we need information campaigns. I mean, there's something you must wish for, that all the work you have put into this, all the effort, needs to be spread out in the world. How does that happen, and how do you work for that as well?
I think actually this is one of the most important aspects which we've been reflecting as well. We've been talking to market participants, because I mean the regulator in a way is not credible. If I'm telling you, we are doing great things, you say, yeah, sure, of course you are doing great things, that's you who says it. But if they hear it from the market itself, like I liked very much one small developer, a young guy who wrote a blog post, and then he said, I finally could do this, I don't know if it was a game emulator app that I was always thinking about, and what else have we been missing that we didn't know before? And these are the stories that we would like, me personally, but I think also I speak for my team, would like to hear out there. What else is possible now, has been possible already, that was not possible before the DMA? This is what we are in touch with people, we are with innovators, we hear their stories. I think what we also need is multipliers. The multipliers in the countries, because it's a bubbly subject. I totally agree. In Brussels, we can keep talking about Article 6, Paragraph 7 of the DMA and be happy with that. But what we need to hear is, as I said, the story of the small Spanish company who's now producing rings that connect to the devices of the gatekeepers and are offering services that were never there before. So, stories, indeed. Real people, the real entrepreneurs who are taking advantage, multipliers, your associations, the governments in the company.
So we always need to come from the user's perspective and then find the right channels. Are there any other suggestions for the right channels? Filomena mentioned the multipliers, the associations. Alexandre, what would you suggest for the right channels to take to inform people? Yeah, take the mic.
Those are conferences where you have the tech entrepreneur, because of course they don't have time to go to a legal conference or to pay a lawyer. So I mean, that's, you have to go at the source, and I mean, they have to make this thing a living thing, you know. But again, I mean, I don't want to overplay also the role of the DMA. I think it's just one piece among many others, and I think it's only when we manage to bring every piece together that the things will change, and our let's say entrepreneur could strive.
Mm-hmm. Emmanuel?
Yeah, I say, well, as we simplify, all the regulation could be turned into something that can become a competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. So when we are, if the ecosystem of the startup and the scale-up, we can be closer to them to explain, because at the end of the day, when we are engaging with startups or small companies as a large company, the first thing that kills the thing is the burden of compliance. And they say, we can do that, we cannot do that, etc. And we say, yes, but if you would be able to do that, you will be the first choice with a great contract. So why your VC has not advised you about targeting that compliance topic, that we could open up a large market in that industry? And we were focused on our product, we want the product to meet the market, etc., etc. But listen to the users. Yeah. And the users will tell you that we're spending as much on the compliance than we're spending on the feature. So if you are tackling with your innovation the compliance thing, you are number one. So I think it really could be an advantage, and we are very much supporting that in the market.
It's just kind of a switch in the story. Could be that easy. Verena, who do you talk to find channels to promote regulation, but also deregulation, and how do you think we need to find more communication channels?
Well, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur myself, but with the Startup Association, we have over 1,200 members, and obviously this is something that matters to them, and we talk about the real-life examples. Where is my ad not seen? Where is my service not coming through? So it's not paragraphs we talk, it's more real life. And then, obviously, we have the power to push it towards governments, policymakers, to make sure that we, as I said, see that this is like probably the strongest sword we have in terms of level playing field. And at least that's something that we have it. Now we just have to use it.
Okay. So last question. What would be the next steps, the next immediate steps to take to get the DMA just in the place he needs to be, Filomena?
First of all, I take back to Brussels and to my team everything that I heard today, because it was a very, very insightful full day, hearing all the different, not only the ministries, the representatives of the ministries, but also the entrepreneurs, because you see really the problems on the ground that have emerged. I take the call for leadership that we need. We need a collective leadership across Europe. This is not about the Commission leadership. It's about, and that's what you said also, governments is at the local level. It's a collective leadership towards the same direction. I take the call for a stronger but simpler enforcement. So that's the quantum enforcement. But I will look into how to make this happen, of course. And I take also the point, and that I think it was very firm in our mind as well, that the DMA is a piece of the puzzle, but the puzzle is much broader, of European sovereignty, of innovation. It requires much more than regulation. It requires more than enforcement, but it does require enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Alexander.
I would say yes, enforcement. I think that's what we need, and clarity on what the Commission is expecting. Because there was this myth, that the DMA was self-executing. I don't think it's the case. I mean, it is complex because those services are complex, and so I think really the Commission should give more indication of where they want to go, and also more organizing, maybe more a trilateral dialogue between the regulated company, so the so-called gatekeeper, and the one who benefit from it. Because, I mean, the Commission cannot know everything, so by having those kind of trilateral exchange, I think the Commission and everyone can learn a lot. Ideally through with engineers and not with lawyers.
Yeah, Verena.
I've said everything I have to say.
Okay. And Emmanuel, last word.
I need engineers and not lawyers.
Thank you very much for this very insightful panel at the end. Thank you for discussing this bubbly topic at the end of this insightful day. Thank you. So we've almost come to an end. This was a very insightful day. We heard the call for leadership. I think that goes out to everyone here in the room. We talked a lot about infrastructure, like the connectivity, the cloud technologies, to enable us to be at the front row in AI developments. We heard great examples for corporations in Europe. We had the edicts, the new edicts here on the panel. We had the wallet, the dream come true for our minister, and now the Chancellor is arriving. So I can assure you that I hand over a stage that provided a solid foundation for new European corporations on the many facets of digital sovereignty that we have discussed. And thank you very much for this opportunity. We eagerly await your thoughts, Mr. Chancellor. Welcome on stage, if this is possible. And le président, il est arrivé. Ah, merci beaucoup. So the president is here as well. I was thinking that you haven't arrived, but I'm very happy to see you. So I hand over the stage to the Chancellor first, and he will hand over to you. Welcome, Friedrich Merz.
Monsieur le Président de la République française, cher Emmanuel, meine Damen und Herren, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, Frau Virkun, sehr geehrte Frau Olsen, lieber Carsten Wildberger, Kolleginnen und Kollegen aus dem Deutschen Bundestag, aus den Ministerien der 10 teilnehmenden EU-Mitgliedstaaten, Exzellenzen, meine Damen und Herren. Herzlich willkommen zu unserem europäischen digitalen Gipfel, zur europäischen Souveränität. Ich freue mich sehr, dass Sie in so großer Zahl unserer gemeinsamen Einladung gefolgt sind. Unser Land technologisch und digitalpolitisch nach vorne bringen. Mit diesem Ziel lädt Sie die Bundesregierung heute hier zum Digitalgipfel ein. Und wir laden ein, zusammen mit unseren französischen Freunden. Deshalb noch einmal ein sehr herzliches Willkommen, lieber Emmanuel Macron. Meine Damen und Herren, die Idee zu diesem Treffen heute entstand im Sommer, als wir uns zusammen mit den beiden Regierungen in Toulon zum deutsch-französischen Ministerrat getroffen haben. Wir wollen heute in bester deutsch-französischer Tradition dort vorangehen, wo Europa jetzt schnell vorankommen muss, nämlich bei der digitalen Souveränität. Die tektonischen Verschiebungen, die wir zurzeit auf der Welt erleben, in den politischen und in den ökonomischen Machtzentren, erfordern schnelles Handeln im digitalen Raum. Denn die Fragen der Zukunft, sie werden überwiegend auch im digitalen Raum entschieden. Wir sehen die systemische Rivalität der USA und Chinas, zweier Großmächte, auch zweier Digitalgroßmächte, die um die Technologieführerschaft ringen. Europa darf ihnen dieses Feld nicht überlassen. Wir haben gesehen, vielen Dank. Wir haben gesehen die Störungen bei 2 der 3 großen Cloud-Anbieter und die Lieferengpässe bei wesentlichen Chips in den letzten Wochen. Und diese Störungen zeigen, wir sind abhängig von digitalen Technologien, sowohl aus China als auch aus den Vereinigten Staaten von Amerika. Und wir erleben ganz unmittelbar und direkt, wie diese Abhängigkeiten machtpolitisch eingesetzt werden. Und deshalb meine ich, deshalb ist es unsere gemeinsame Überzeugung, Europa muss in vereinter Kraftanstrengung einen eigenen digitalen Weg gehen und dieser Weg muss in die digitale Souveränität führen, jedenfalls überall dort, wo es notwendig und wo es erreichbar ist. Auf diesem Weg wollen wir 3 zentrale Gedanken mit Ihnen teilen. Erstens, wir in Europa setzen im digitalen Raum auf Offenheit, Vertrauen und auf unsere Werte. Wir wollen keine virtuellen Mauern bauen. Wir wollen den Informationsraum nicht spalten. Zusammenarbeit und Vernetzung bleiben für uns Leitprinzipien, nicht Abschottung oder Protektionismus. Und dafür suchen wir gleichgesinnte Partner auf der ganzen Welt. Klar ist, wir werden digitale Souveränität nicht politisch herbeiregulieren oder herbei subventionieren können. Wir müssen sie gemeinsam mit der Wirtschaft, der Wissenschaft und der Zivilgesellschaft gestalten. Wir wollen sie mit Ihnen gestalten, meine Damen und Herren, die heute hier unserer Einladung gefolgt sind. Zweitens, für mehr Unabhängigkeit müssen wir in Europa digitale Fähigkeiten entwickeln. Um im Wettbewerb um digitale Technologien zu bestehen, brauchen wir Innovationsfähigkeit. Ich gehe noch einen Schritt weiter. Wir brauchen Innovationsführerschaft. Das betrifft insbesondere die entscheidenden Schlüsseltechnologien von künstlicher Intelligenz über Quantentechnologie und Cloud Computing bis hin zur Mikroelektronik. Nur so schaffen wir Alternativen und eben auch Wahlmöglichkeiten. Wir schließen niemanden aus, der sich an die Regeln hält, und wir wollen Wettbewerb auf Augenhöhe. Mit dem Eurostack liegt eine umfassende Strategie für Europa vor. Zur Stärkung der Wettbewerbsfähigkeit, zur Sicherung wichtiger Ressourcen und zum Aufbau eines widerstandsfähigen und zukunftsorientierten digitalen Ökosystems. Und schließlich drittens, digitale Souveränität ist eng mit unserer Sicherheit und Verteidigung verknüpft. Wir müssen uns aus eigener Kraft gegen Cyberangriffe auf unsere Systeme und gegen Desinformation, die auf unsere Demokratien zielt, verteidigen können, meine Damen und Herren. Und deshalb geht es auch darum, dass die Bundeswehr und andere europäische Armeen die digitalen Technologien haben, die sie zu unserer Verteidigung brauchen. Und dass wir diese Technologien tatsächlich beherrschen und dann einsetzen, wenn wir sie brauchen. Es geht darum, dass wir resilient sind. Das heißt, dass bei Ausfall einer Technologie auch Alternativen zur Verfügung stehen. Meine Damen und Herren, um den europäischen digitalen Weg gemeinsam und erfolgreich zu beschreiten, tragen unsere beiden Länder, tragen Deutschland und Frankreich eine besondere Verantwortung. Und dies ist wahr, allein schon aufgrund unserer Größe und unserer Wirtschaftskraft. Wenn wir unsere Anstrengungen bündeln, dann hat das Auswirkungen auf die gesamte Europäische Union. Und darum geht es uns, nicht um einen bilateralen, sondern um einen gesamteuropäischen Ansatz, um Impulse zu geben für ganz Europa. Deshalb ist es wichtig, dass beim heutigen Gipfel die Exekutivpräsidentin der Europäischen Kommission, Henna Vikkunen, und die dänische Ratspräsidentschaft, vertreten durch die Digitalministerin Caroline Stach-Olsen, heute hier sind. Ich heiße Sie ganz besonders herzlich willkommen. Ich freue mich, dass Sie dabei sind. Denn, meine Damen und Herren, das ist unser Bemühen. Wir sprechen mit einer europäischen Stimme und wir arbeiten an einem Ziel zusammen, der europäischen digitalen Souveränität. Heute haben Sie bereits und wollen wir im Folgenden einige Handlungsfelder miteinander besprechen und voranbringen. Es sind dies der Abbau, der Rückbau der Bürokratie, die Beschaffung und Investitionen. Lassen Sie mich mit dem Rückbau der Bürokratie beginnen. Der Weg zur digitalen Souveränität geht über bessere Bedingungen für digitale Innovationen, und das heißt, wir brauchen eine radikale Vereinfachung in unserer Regulierungspraxis und praxisnahe Ausnahmeregeln. Ich sage das deshalb, meine Damen und Herren, weil ich dies mit einem Dank verbinden will an 20 Staats- und Regierungschefs der Europäischen Union, die mit mir zusammen einen Brief unterschrieben haben an den Ratspräsidenten und an die Kommissionspräsidentin vor 4 Wochen, der genau dies fordert, dass wir nämlich jetzt wirklich ernst machen mit dem Rückbau der europäischen Bürokratie und der Öffnung dieser Märkte, so wie wir es eigentlich einmal bei der Schaffung des europäischen Binnenmarktes vor über 30 Jahren miteinander verabredet haben. Wir fangen bei uns selbst an. Bundesminister Carsten Wildberger hat heute die umfassenden Bemühungen der Bundesregierung um den Bürokratierückbau deutlich gemacht. Die beschlossene Modernisierungsagenda des Bundes zielt darauf ab, und die föderalen Maßnahmen, die wir zusammen mit den Ländern verhandeln, dienen genau diesem Ziel. Gleiche Ambition und konkrete Umsetzungsschritte erwarten wir jetzt auch auf der europäischen Ebene. Wir haben deswegen der Kommission umfassende Vorschläge für Vereinfachungen und Bürokratierückbau eben auch im digitalen Bereich gemacht. Die EU-Kommission wird morgen, Sie wissen das alle, ja auch ein Digital-Omnibus-Paket dazu veröffentlichen. Die Omnibus-Pakete sind der Lackmustest, ob Bürokratierückbau in Brüssel und ich sage hinzu auch in Straßburg wirklich gelingt. Unnötige Regulierung in der Digitalgesetzgebung in der EU darf europäische Innovationskraft nicht hemmen. Das bedeutet nicht, dass wir das Schutzniveau absenken wollen. Aber wir wollen mehr Freiheitsräume öffnen. Wir wollen mehr Möglichkeiten zur technologischen Entwicklung und Gestaltung schaffen. Im Zentrum der digitalen Souveränität steht der Umgang mit Daten. Und hier sehen wir folgende Prioritäten. Zum einen müssen wir weiterhin den Wettbewerb im zentralen Cloud-Markt stärken. Ich begrüße ausdrücklich, dass der Digital Markets Act auch auf große Cloud-Anbieter anwendbar sein soll, sobald sie als sogenannte Gatekeeper eingestuft sind. Dann gelten für alle die gleichen fairen Regeln. Zugleich können europäische Cloud-Anbieter leichter in den Markt eintreten und vom fairen Wettbewerb auf Augenhöhe profitieren. Und zum anderen, wir müssen kritische Daten der EU-Mitgliedstaaten durch souveräne Infrastruktur vor dem Zugriff Dritter schützen. Um es deutlich zu sagen, hier geht es nicht darum, irgendjemanden auszugrenzen. Es geht vielmehr um Resilienz und Datensicherheit in Europa. Und gleichzeitig ist dies ein Angebot an die europäischen Cloud-Anbieter: Investieren Sie, wir brauchen Sie. Wir denken auch über weitere Anreize nach. Präsident Macron und ich sind uns einig, wir wollen denjenigen, die souveräne Clouds für die Speicherung ihrer Daten in Europa nutzen, mehr Flexibilität bei der Nutzung dieser Daten einräumen. Und dann zur Beschaffung. Bei sich anfangen heißt auch, unsere Bundesverwaltung wird ihre digitalen Produkte und Dienstleistungen noch viel stärker europäisch beschaffen. Wir machen den Staat zum Ankerkunden für souveräne Arbeitsmittel in der öffentlichen Verwaltung. Wie in der Modernisierungsagenda vorgesehen, werden wir in der Bundesverwaltung in den nächsten 3 Jahren souveräne digitale Arbeitsplätze zur Verfügung stellen. Denn der Staat muss seine Arbeit auch in Krisenzeiten stabil ausführen können. Erste Behörden, wie zum Beispiel das Robert-Koch-Institut, sind bereits umgestiegen, und auch im Bundesministerium für Digitales und Staatsmodernisierung, schließlich auch bei mir im Bundeskanzleramt, sind Komponenten aus dem Open Desk bereits im Einsatz. Diese Anwendungen sind ein Beispiel für unser Vorgehen. Sie wurden größtenteils vom Zentrum für digitale Souveränität in engster Kooperation mit Frankreich erarbeitet, und deswegen sind sie interoperabel. Mit dem neuen europäischen Konsortium für strategische digitale Gemeinschaftsgüter, das heute vorgestellt wurde, meine Damen und Herren, können wir solche Lösungen jetzt auch europäisch anbieten, austauschen und skalieren. Und wir wollen die öffentliche IT-Beschaffung in Europa weiterentwickeln. Hier ist heute erstmalig das deutsch-französische High-Level Forum on Public Procurement zusammengekommen. Wir wollen gemeinsame Kriterien definieren für die Beschaffung souveräner digitaler Dienste. Und wir sprechen auch über die Möglichkeit, gemeinsam auszuschreiben und zu beschaffen. Wir senden ein deutliches Signal damit an die europäischen IT-Dienstleister. Die Nachfrage der Verwaltung ist da. Ihre digitalen Technologien werden gebraucht. Sie werden hier bei uns gebraucht. Und schließlich zu den Investitionen. Und bei uns selbst anfangen heißt auch, die Bundesregierung investiert in Innovationen. Mit der neuen Hightech-Agenda Deutschland richten wir die Forschungs- und Innovationspolitik nicht nur auf technologische Souveränität und Wettbewerbsfähigkeit aus. Wir stellen dafür auch 18 Milliarden € bis zum Ende der Wahlperiode zur Verfügung. Wir haben an uns selbst einen Führungsanspruch gestellt bei innovativen KI-Technologien. Deshalb wollen wir gemeinsam mit Frankreich und mit der EU-Kommission die Entwicklung souveräner europäischer KI-Modelle voranbringen. Und dabei wollen wir weitere Länder, private Investoren und viele andere gewinnen. Die nächste Generation von KI soll auch in Europa gestaltet werden. Klar ist, der Staat kann auf dem Markt für digitale Dienste nur einzelne Impulse setzen. Und das tun wir. Die entscheidenden Impulse für die digitale Souveränität, meine Damen und Herren, die müssen von der Wirtschaft selbst ausgehen. Wir geben ihnen den Rahmen, sie müssen ihn ausfüllen. Die Unternehmen sind nämlich die größten Nutzer von Cloud-Diensten, von Softwarelösungen und von KI-Anwendungen. Sie sind die größten Datenproduzenten und auch die größten Datennutzer. Sie sind Produktivitäts- und Innovationstreiber. Die Unternehmerinnen und Unternehmer tragen damit Verantwortung. Jeder Einkauf von digitalen Produkten und Dienstleistungen, jede Investition in Infrastruktur aus Europa ist letztendlich auch eine Entscheidung für oder gegen digitale Souveränität. Die Frage, wo die Daten gelagert werden, wer Zugriff auf sie hat, welche KI-Sprachmodelle mit welchem Zweck damit trainiert werden, wer sozusagen den Generalschlüssel für die eingekaufte digitale Lösung hat, meine Damen und Herren, das sind keine trivialen Fragen. Sie entscheiden mit über die Zukunftsfähigkeit von Unternehmen und ganzen Unternehmensmodellen. Ja, digitale Souveränität, meine Damen und Herren, hat Kosten. Aber die digitale Abhängigkeit hat noch höhere Kosten. Und die Wirtschaft und deshalb investieren Sie und deshalb investieren wir in digitale Souveränität. Und hier und heute in Berlin sagen Unternehmen aus Deutschland, Frankreich und weiteren europäischen Ländern Investitionen von über 12 Milliarden € am und für den digitalen Standort Europa zu. Meine Damen und Herren, ich möchte Ihnen namens der Bundesregierung für dieses Engagement und für diese Investitionszusagen von ganzem Herzen danken. Sie sehen, wir machen uns nicht erst heute auf den Weg zu europäischer digitaler Souveränität. Wir sind bereits unterwegs, aber dieser deutsch-französische Gipfel zeigt, wie kraftvoll und wie innovativ wir sein können, wenn wir im Zentrum Europas den starken deutsch-französischen Motor anwerfen. Und wenn dieser Gipfel vorbei ist, meine Damen und Herren, dann wird die Arbeit noch intensiver weitergehen. Zusammen mit Frankreich werden wir die Punkte aus der gemeinsamen Wirtschaftsagenda umsetzen, die wir uns vorgenommen haben. Im digitalen Bereich legen wir einen klaren Fokus auf souveräne KI und Cloud. Heute Vormittag habe ich in Halle in Sachsen-Anhalt das Max-Planck-Institut für Mikrostrukturphysik besucht. Und davon nehme ich vor allem eines mit. Deutschland kann im Schulterschluss mit anderen europäischen Partnern führend werden bei Technologien für unsere digitale Souveränität. Wir haben schon viel erreicht in Deutschland. Wir haben die Standorte, wir haben die Mitarbeiterinnen und Mitarbeiter, wir haben die Forscherinnen und Forscher. Lassen Sie uns daraus gemeinsam etwas machen. Eine der weltweit führenden KI für Bildgenerierung etwa kommt schon aus Deutschland. Und die US-Tech-Firmen sind Kunden, nicht Lieferanten. Große Konzerne und Start-up tun sich für digitale Innovationen zusammen. Und das auch grenzüberschreitend. Und immer öfter kommt das Wagniskapital für all dies auch aus Europa, für Europa. Das heißt, Europa kann digital souverän werden. Meine Damen und Herren, lassen Sie mich abschließend ein Wort zum Kapitalmarkt sagen. Wenn wir erfolgreich sein wollen, dann müssen wir es nicht nur technologisch wollen, dann müssen wir es auch über den Kapitalmarkt können. Und deswegen habe ich gestern auf der Euro Finance Week in Frankfurt dasselbe gesagt, wie ich es heute hier noch einmal wiederholen möchte. Wir müssen auch unsere Anstrengungen zusammenlegen und verstärken, einen europäischen Kapitalmarkt für die Finanzierung der Unternehmen zu finden, die jetzt noch vielleicht Start-ups sind oder jetzt am Anfang ihrer Entwicklung stehen. Emmanuel Macron und ich sind entschlossen, auch diesen Weg in den nächsten Wochen und Monaten gemeinsam weiterzugehen, so dass wir in der Lage sind, diese Innovationen, diese Investitionen auch über einen gemeinsamen integrierten europäischen Kapitalmarkt zu finanzieren. Wenn wir diesen Weg gemeinsam gehen, die Innovation im Bereich der digitalen Industrien und gleichzeitig den Kapitalmarkt dafür bereitzuhalten, der dies alles finanziert, dann bin ich mir sicher, dann haben wir eine große Chance, aus diesem Momentum, in dem wir sind, etwas zu machen und die Krise, in der wir uns befinden, als Chance zu nutzen. Als Chance nicht nur für Deutschland, als Chance nicht nur für die deutsch-französische Zusammenarbeit, sondern als Chance für die gesamte Europäische Union. Herzlichen Dank, dass Sie hier sind. Herzlichen Dank, dass Sie uns auf diesem Weg so begleiten, wie Sie es heute schon den ganzen Tag getan haben.
Yeah. So now, President Macron, I think we heard very important words of our Chancellor Merz, who pointed out the things we discussed today on the stage, actually, and we are really keen on and curious what the French side now has to say. So, je suis vraiment contente et ravie de faire votre connaissance, de vous accueillir ici. Alors, Monsieur le Président Emmanuel Macron, bienvenue.
Monsieur le Chancelier fédéral, dear Chancellor, dear Friedrich, Commissioner, Ministers, entrepreneurs, investors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Friedrich, for this opportunity to be here with you and with our entrepreneurs and investors and academics and ministers for such an important event. And let me first apologize, Madam and everybody, for my delay. I'm responsible for that, but I wanted to welcome in France Boilem Sansal, and I want to reiterate my greeting and my big thanks to the German diplomacy and to you and President Steinmeier for your incredible help. He's back. Thanks to you. So I have to say, and this is a pleasure and not a coincidence, but I do agree totally with what Chancellor Merz expressed right now. And indeed, we are together completely convinced that we have entered a technological race in the digital field, which clearly affects the pillars of our society. And of course, our economy has entered the race for AI, cloud computing, chips, quantum technology, and from downstream to upstream, in all these different transformations, the competition is definitely a very fierce and global one. Talking about digital sovereignty is relevant to our competitiveness and our ability to innovate, but also to the health of our democracies, the efficiency of our public services, and to the protection of our citizens, particularly our children, and I will revert on that. And this is also taking place in the context of a great confrontation you mentioned, Friedrich, between US and China. And let's be clear, Europe doesn't want to be the client of the big entrepreneurs or the big solutions being provided either from US or from China. We clearly want to design our own solutions. Not to say that we don't want to cooperate. Being more sovereign and more independent doesn't mean you want to be in autarcia. No. But it means on the key pillars, on the key building blocks, you want to preserve your sovereignty. And this is just a refusal of being a vassal. And indeed, there is a short-term cost not to be a vassal, because you have to reinvest. You have sometimes to take very bold decisions to be sure you will not create new dependencies or preserve existing dependencies. But I think it's very important for us. This transformation presents us with a twofold challenge. Innovate to remain competitive while protecting our data, our infrastructure, and more broadly, our sovereignty. And this is this agenda of innovation and protection, which is not protectionism, which is so important, where probably we prioritize during the past few years regulation of our domestic players. And this is what we have to change. We have to innovate before regulating, and we have to protect not to be overwhelmed by the non-European competitors. And this is the right approach, according to us, in order precisely to deliver this digital agenda. Germany and France are convinced that this challenge can only be met collectively at European level, in a spirit of unity and shared responsibility. And thank you once again for this summit, this invitation, and the opportunity to be together, to have our commissioner and so many ministers and the current presidency. Because if we let the Americans and the Chinese have all the champions, one thing is certain. We may have the best regulations in the world, but we won't be regulating anything. This is why our willingness is clearly to do everything we can to build European champions on the different key building blocks, key elements of our digital strategy, and to deploy an holistic approach, as you perfectly phrased it. I would like to take this opportunity to highlight some of our achievements first, before going to the top priorities of this summit. First of all, I want to remind all of us that we have very strong assets. And having framed the discussion by insisting on this fierce competition with China and US, I really believe that till now we underestimated what we can do together as Europeans. First, we have a 450 million consumers market, and this is a huge asset. And this domestic market is not to be underestimated. Only the European market can provide both the scale and the core values that can allow our tech companies to thrive and export their products on international markets. This is why the single market agenda is so important. Second, we are attractive, and it was shown at the Summit for Action on AI in February in Paris, clearly illustrated by the commitments and the announcement of this summit today in Berlin. And clearly we have a momentum precisely to attract more and more investments. 12 billion mentioned here. Our two countries are attracting a lot of investment coming from the rest of the world to build more data centers and solutions. And we have clearly a lot of assets. We have talents in Europe. We have this domestic market. We have energy. And we can deploy as well critical solutions. So I want to insist on the fact that we are an attractive place, and we have a lot of assets that we can provide. Third, we have a very strong Franco-German convergence. This summit on European digital sovereignty is a concrete result of the agenda that we set during the Franco-German Council of Ministers co-chaired in Toulon during the end of August this year, and which allowed the adoption of 8 roadmaps in the key critical sectors necessary to our competitiveness and around 30 flagship initiatives. This summit is a new demonstration of a Franco-German reflex that plays out all levels, as shown by the number of companies and stakeholders present today. Fourth, we have also managed to develop remarkable tools at the European level. And this is an asset. In a world where technology is much faster than legislation, these tools do not yet allow us to ensure the ambition of European digital sovereignty. But in the current geopolitical context, preserving our digital acquis is of utmost importance. With GDPR in 2018, and more recently with DSA and DMA framework, and the upcoming Cybersecurity Act, the EU is endowed with several key legislations, respecting a fair balance between ensuring ethics, consumer protection, safeguarding democracy, while also favoring innovation and competitiveness. Now what we want to do is clarification on some remaining issue. This is part of the outcome of this summit, and a simplification agenda. But I want to insist on that even in front of entrepreneurs, because this set of very important regulations is an asset. In a democracy like the US, it is not sustainable to have tech companies without any regulation. It's impossible, because you cannot dedicate the strength of your economy to the 7 magnificence, and more than that, you cannot delegate the whole functioning of your democracy to the 7 magnificence. It's unbearable. So we do believe in innovation, we do believe in sovereignty, we do believe in these digital innovations, but in our societies with our values. And this is a fact that we all live in democracies, and this is a chance. And we are neither dictatorship or autocracies, nor a democracy with a strange collective choice, which is indeed to renounce to any capacity to regulate, because we know the result of that. Some monopolies, the dysfunctioning of the market, and at the end of the day, the killing of potential innovation, and more than that, the dysfunctioning of democracies. The fifth point on our European assets is that we have tech leaders, and from startups to well-established companies that are ready to make this message their own. By bringing together a wide range of private Franco-German and European initiatives, this summit has shown that we are aligned with the digital sector. I want to cite here the landmark partnerships between Mistral and SAP in AI, the partnerships between Pascal, the CEA, and the German Jülich Supercomputing Center in quantum, the partnership between Hawking, Institut Gustave Roussy, and La Charité Berlin on AI and health, and as well as all the announcements made by the EU AI Champions initiatives. And this is the best evidence of the fact that we do have a lot of champions and a lot of energy in this room and a lot of common projects. These 5 points are here to say that we have everything if we want to deliver the agenda of more sovereignty in the digital field. And if we want to be much more sovereign on AI, quantum, chips, and so on. Now, let me just flag some of the critical outcomes of this summit I wanted to underline, and completely in continuity with the words of the Chancellor. With all these efforts, we've created the conditions for a European model for tech, which puts our values and our economy's principles at the forefront. Creating this framework was necessary but not sufficient. We have to move to execution and take action to unleash the full potential of the European tech ecosystem. And for this reason, we put digital sovereignty, fostering domestic champions and freeing ourselves from dependence on foreign technologies at the forefront of the economic agenda that we set during the Franco-German Council of Ministers. And this summit is the time to implement this agenda and to achieve true European sovereignty, which means freeing ourselves from technological dependencies at every level of the value chain, from critical infrastructures and hardware to data, cloud, and software. And we will move forward with 3 priorities that we believe are key to strengthening European tech companies and fostering the emergence of new leaders. First, simplification. I cannot agree more with the words of the Chancellor, and we work very hard together, engaging with our members of Parliament and the Commission to deliver a big simplification agenda at the European scale. This is a necessity, because sometimes we put tariffs to ourselves in certain ways, and we have to lift them. Have said it, Europe has implemented pioneering legislation to ensure that the digital transformation wouldn't hinder the democratic principles and consumer protection that stand at the heart of the European model. And this is good, but what we have now realized is that over-regulation as well has a cost. And the Draghi report estimates that reducing administrative burdens could unlock 200 billion euros. So because streamlined and coherent regulatory framework enhance clarity, support startup development and strengthen European competitiveness, we need concrete measures towards simplification. And our approach is to prevent legal uncertainty and to adapt existing legislation to fit our standards for consumer and data protection while preventing value regulatory burden. And it's feasible, and it is part of the outcome of this summit. On the GDPR, thanks to the Franco-German agreement, now we will push together, and we are asking the Commission to simplify by improving the calibration of regulatory obligations with a risk-based approach, much more proportionate, much more adapted, and this is what a lot of companies are requesting from GDPR. We want to preserve this regulation. It's very important for a series of topics and our values, but we need this adaptation. On the AI Act, we ask for a 12-month postponement of compliance for high-risk AI systems. Necessity as well to use this time in order to accelerate our innovation agenda. And the priorities defined today and the measures that we are taking are part of a wider agenda, as I mentioned, to simplify digital regulation, as well as CSRD, CSDDD, to allow all European companies to scale up. And part of this simplification agenda is as well the deepening of the single market. The most important simplification agenda for all of you is to create a real digital single market. And it is not yet the case. Your domestic market is still the German or the French market. And you have to face with additional regulations, other regulators, when you cross the border. The top necessity, and for us the core of our agenda together with Chancellor Merz, is clearly to streamline this regulation on some critical sectors, and digital is part of them, in order to simplify, merge some administrative bodies, and deliver a concrete and in real terms, a single digital market. As Friedrich Merz mentioned it, we need in parallel to create an actual savings and investment union. And this is a necessity to accelerate on this agenda. Why? Because in order to deliver a sovereign agenda on the digital side, but it's true as well for energy and other sectors, we need more innovation. And we have to finance this innovation. And obviously we will push together to have more common financing from the EU. We have our own programs and we try to work together. But we have to mobilize much more private money. And the paradox is that our continent is number one in terms of savings, but one of the worst places to use these savings on innovation and equity, which is crazy. And this is a result of our over-regulation on banks and insurance, but as well as the fact that we don't have a proper capital market union. This is why we want to accelerate the securitization agenda beginning of 26 in order to deliver this agenda to take part of the savings in the banks and insurance to go to innovation and to invest on equity. And in parallel to accelerate the implementation of the capital market union to have a proper integrated place and channel much more of the savings on innovation. Second, after simplification, innovation, precisely. This is the second common priority. Europe can capitalize on a world-class university system, on a wide pool of talent and of ideas, but also on the quality of existing infrastructure, including a rapidly increasing computing power capacity and the experience of established industrial groups that are partnering with emerging players to develop vertical tech solutions. On this issue, I just wanted to insist on the fact that we have to follow up our cooperations on our programs on both sides in order to educate and train more and more talents. And in parallel, to build more and more computing capacities. What we need to deliver and to succeed, especially on AI, is talents and computing capacities. And on this issue, state governments and the EU have a role to play to ensure that new actors have access to appropriate infrastructure, including computing power and frontier research centers. And today, with the Jupiter supercomputing facility in Germany and Alice Recoq in France, and tomorrow, thanks to the AI Factory and AI Gigafactories initiatives at the European level, as well as to the IPEC AI that we initiated with Germany and several other member states, we have the beginning of such cooperations. But now, let's accelerate and let's deliver this capacity. It is absolutely critical. Third point, and part of the achievement of this summit, protection. To limit the risk of extraterritorial enforcement of foreign laws, to limit our dependency, we have to act and to take bold decisions. Otherwise, we will speak about sovereignty, but we will be super dependent on foreign solutions or decisions. This is why we have a first issue in terms of sovereignty, data. We need to strengthen the protection of European data with the revision of the Cybersecurity Act, as well as in the design of the EU cloud certification scheme. We have to create the capacity to store the data on our continent, but we have to preserve this data and the use of this data from extraterritorial laws. Otherwise, we are not sovereign anymore. We also need to protect our market. Dominant players today, often non-European, as we mentioned together, are abusing their market power and preventing new challengers from being successful and innovating. This is a reality. Our goal is to restore fair digital markets where competition can fully play its role to the benefit of innovation and competitiveness. To that end, the DMA, adopted in 2022 during the French presidency, should be leveraged. And we welcome together the recent announcement of the Commission to consider launching a market investigation into the qualitative designation of cloud hyperscalers. I think this is a very important move forward in the implementation of DMA. But we need a fair market where the top leaders are not the ones to kill the competition. Otherwise, there is no chance to have innovation and fair competition. More generally, we are already seeing the positive impacts of regulations such as DMA and DSA, which strongly incentivize all digital actors to respect both our economic roots and core European values. However, our procedures must be quicker while preserving a higher level of quality in the inquiries. But we have clearly to accelerate the implementation of these regulations. To go further, I strongly believe that European preference needs to become our guiding principle, starting with public procurement. If we believe in digital sovereignty, if we want to help our champion to succeed, our top priority as governments, but as well as large companies, large European companies, is to have a European preference agenda. Because guess what? The Chinese have a Chinese exclusivity as soon as they can, and the Americans have a very strong American preference. Sometimes in the regulations, but most of the time in the practice. We are the only place where there is never a European preference, not to say a fascination for non-European solutions sometimes. And this is why the collaborative work that France and Germany are launching to define the notion of European digital services will be key to the concrete implementation of European preference. We launched a working group together to say, okay, what does it mean, having a European digital service? We will fix it rapidly, work with the Commission and our colleagues, but this is a necessity. We have to put it in our regulation to create this preference. And I mentioned this partnership between SAP and Mistral, but the letter of intent that our two governments signed today with SAP and Mistral is for me a game changer. It will be the preference for an existing European solution which will be used for public administration in our two countries. This is a game changer and for me the role model of what we need. And I do encourage all the large companies, all the local authorities and the governments present in this room just to look at the competitive map each time you want to take a digital solution. Is there a competitive and high-quality European solution? If it exists, take it. Please, take it. Adopt it. Because this is your unique chance to be sure that you will secure your provider with European regulation, that you will prevent yourself from some extraterritorial laws or decisions today or tomorrow. And it will be the best way to help this ecosystem to be competitive. In this context, this is why we have to accelerate our adoption agenda. And I want to conclude with this point. Adoption now is critical. We were probably incomplete with Mr. Chancellor. We didn't speak sufficiently about all the infrastructures, our chip agenda and so on, but you mentioned that today and we will revert in the months to come on this issue. But now one of the critical race where we have to accelerate is that for all the critical players in the different fields of the industry, we have to accelerate the agenda of adoption for AI. It's true for public administration, but it's super important as well for the different sectors of our industry. Why? Because it will be the best way to provide activities and clients to the AI quantum companies. Second, because it will improve productivity and competitiveness of these key players. And third, it will secure the use of GPUs on our soil. But adoption is a new race, and we will have in the weeks, not to say the days to come, the 26th of this month in Paris, the Adoption AI Summit as a follow-up of this one, but it's very important to take very seriously this agenda as well. My very last remark will be to protect citizens in this digital space. And I wanted to flag that in this context of European digital sovereignty because it's part of it, even if I don't want to elaborate today. But if we speak about sovereignty, we should not underestimate our democratic and I would say our cognitive sovereignty. But if you look at our situation today, you give the responsibility of your teenagers who spend on average 4 to 5 hours per day on the social networks. You give the responsibility of the content they are exposed to US private providers or big Chinese companies. And they design the content, they are in charge of the algorithm, they are in charge of the content with DSA and our regulation, but still being implemented. So when we speak about cyberbullying, when we speak about being exposed to pornography, when we speak about having some mental disease, and et cetera, I mean, let's be clear. This is exactly made by these platforms to your children. And we decided de facto to give them this exclusivity. So this is why, if we want to speak about sovereignty, we have to protect much more our children vis-à-vis all these contents and all these platforms. And the agenda of children and teenagers' protection is a necessity for their mental health, for the sustainability of our education system. Second, if we want to protect our democracies and preserve the well-functioning of our democracies, let's regulate as well the content of this platform. Let's be much more demanding. Because, please, don't believe 1 second on the so-called free speech agenda. For me, we don't speak about free speech when the algorithm is hidden and in the hands of very few players, and when they don't implement the laws decided by the citizens of a country. This is the Wild West, not the free speech. So let's be clear. If we want as well digital sovereignty, we will have to better protect our children, our teenagers, and our democratic space. I will stop here. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank you, Mr. Chancellor and ministers, for this unique opportunity. But as you can see, we have a lot of assets to succeed as Europeans and to cooperate with others, but cooperating as a prerequisite, not being dependent. And we can deliver this agenda of being much more innovative, protecting the key building blocks, and being more sovereign. This is exactly what we want to do. And I want you to be sure that there is a very strong alignment and partnership between Germany and France on this agenda. And our willingness in the months to come is as well to structure a core team in order to implement in the months and years to come a clear common digital approach between Germany and France. When we speak about AI, when we speak about quantum, when we speak about all the key issues we mentioned today, we need to build the common integrated market and approach together. We strongly believe in this common approach, and we strongly believe in the European perspective and the close cooperation at 27 and with the European Commission. Thank you for your attention.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci.
Merci. Thank you very much. Vielen Dank, Herr Bundeskanzler. Thanks to everyone. And yeah, thank you to all the numerous guests here in the room as well, from your part, as you are starting right off the work right now, right? Yeah.
And I think the first...
I think the first ones already leave, and leave for you because you are going to cooperate right now. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Merci, merci beaucoup. And I ask... Vielen Dank. Merci. Au revoir. And I ask everyone to stay seated. A few seconds and a few last remarks.
Yes.
Thank you again, the numerous guests here in the room, because you are the multipliers we just talked about in the last panel.
Yes.
And you are the ones you are...